In August 2023, I came very close to giving up art altogether. I'd been painting for 10 years, and up until that time, I really enjoyed it. If you're in a situation where you're not happy with your art, things aren't working out, you're getting frustrated, you're making mistakes, you're feeling disillusioned, you feel like giving up, you don't know what you're doing wrong. I've got 10, isn't it? 5 things that you can do that can help you find more joy in your art. If you're new to this channel, my name is Wendy Dashwood and I'm a visual artist sharing my art journey on YouTube so that other self-taught artists can benefit from the mistakes that I've made. In August 2023, things weren't going well, and I was in my art room, my usual Saturday afternoon art. It was becoming clear to me that the artwork that I was doing wasn't really working. It was overworked, it was lifeless, but then I discovered things were about to get a lot worse. Anyway, there I was staring at this artwork which I knew wasn't working. And one of the things that you do when you're painting is to stand up, step back and take a bird's eye helicopter view of your art to see if you can spot things that aren't really working or just to get a general sense of it. So I stood up, and at that time my art room my kitchen table was a bit chaotic and untidy. Total disclosure there. And I must have caught my foot on something or stepped in a basket of art supplies that were under the table. This made the table move and I knocked a whole glass of water all over my artwork. And then I lost my balance, put my hand in the palette of paints, got a big red splodge of paint on my hand, leant back to balance myself, that got on the wall, and then I wiped it off, and then it got on my jeans, and it was like the universe was conspiring to sort of make this the worst afternoon that I'd had that year. And I remember looking up at the ceiling as if to say, what more do you want from me? I was really, really fed up and I felt like crying. So I'd had this feeling for a while that things weren't going well. Something was wrong. Something was just wrong. And it seemed that the harder I tried, the worse it got. I'm pretty motivated. I have a background in life coaching, and through the books that I've read and everything that I've learned over the years, there's one thing that I recalled, which is if you've got something going on in your life that you need to deal with, there are certain things, it happens to all of us, you have a certain situation that you need to pay attention to and deal with. And if you don't deal with it, and it becomes like a ball and chain that you're carrying around. So it was the universe knocking over the water and the chaos and the drama, which was sort of shouting at me, you need to deal with this, you need to take action. So what I did is I got in touch with my good friend Marie. She features in a previous video of mine. She's a therapeutic artist, and I'll put a link to her actually in the show notes. And she helps people deal with their mental health issues and stress and anxiety through art. Anyway, I went to her house and she said, bring all your artworks, recent stuff, old stuff, bring it all. So I took all my artworks with me and she took me through her process. To cut a long story short, at the end of the process, she said something that would completely change my whole attitude to art. And she said to me, what's going on is the logical, masculine left side of your brain is running the show and you're not letting your intuition get a look in. And she said, don't worry about it. just sit with that thought for a couple of weeks. And when she said that, it actually made a lot of sense. You know, I like to have targets and goals, which I don't think is a bad thing, but I think sometimes in art it gets in the way, because if you want to get good and improve, of course you're in that sort of trying and working and plodding away, but sometimes that isn't what art or creativity is all about. In that it does actually stop the creativity coming through, because you need to sort of get in the zone. You need to sort of almost tap into something else, the source. You know, whatever that means to you, that has different meanings for different people. But for me now, that is the source of inspiration. There's something that comes through you from something else, and that wasn't coming through. So anyway, I then Googled intuitive painting or intuitive art. And I came across an artist called Julie Love. I was really fascinated by the way that she paints, and she creates these incredibly intuitive, beautiful artworks. And then I also, at the same time, I came across another artist called Helen Wells, and she works mainly in acrylic and pencils, and she uses sketchbooks to explore and experiment patterns and shapes, particularly around vases. And she does the most divine artworks. And then I came across another artist called Louise Fletcher, and I went on her course called Find Your Joy, which is all about exploring, experimenting, deliberately making a mess, accepting your limitations. And to be honest with you, I actually found some of the exercises quite difficult, because I'd been used to, in teaching myself to paint, a lot of it is copying other artists and learning different skills, and it isn't so much about, it was unknown territory to explore and experiment and deliberately do things wrong. I found that quite painful, actually. And I don't think I'm alone, because the perfectionism side of us all does tend to creep in. And I do still find that happening when I'm painting, and I have to stop myself from going down that path. Over the course of about 6 months, I completely changed my whole attitude to art and painting. And I think if it hadn't been for that glass of water, if it hadn't been for that, I probably would have been still sort of plugging away on a Saturday afternoon, driving myself insane, not getting anywhere. So if you're in a situation where you're not happy with your art, things aren't working out, you're getting frustrated, you're making mistakes, you're feeling disillusioned, you feel like giving up, you don't know what you're doing wrong, I've got 10, isn't it? 5 things that you can do that can help you find more joy in your art. And the first one is to get a sketchbook or sketchbooks. You can have different sketchbooks for different things. Use those to explore and experiment with. Set realistic expectations and detach from the outcome. Because sometimes, particularly with watercolour, you have no control. You don't know where it's going to go, and it's pointless trying to force the outcome. Because sometimes if you just let things happen, you have to do these experiments, you think, oh, that was interesting, I'd never seen that before, which creates this spontaneity. Right, so yeah, number 4 is use your intuition. Now, what do I mean when I say use your intuition? Sometimes art is all about noticing, it's about being aware. So now when I'm out and about, or in my garden, or in my dreams, or watching the television and I see a shape or a pattern, I think, oh, that looks interesting. And I've got a little sketchbook that I use for thumbnail sketches. And before I forget that little glimmer, I'll do a little 2-inch thumbnail sketch. Which brings me to number 5. Number 5 is very simple, which is be nice to yourself, accept that you're on a journey and you're learning as you go along, and just enjoy. Don't think about getting to the end. Think about every artwork, whether it's a practice, a sketch, or just playing with paint. Just enjoy yourself, which is something that was missing from what I was doing. That's probably the most important thing. You just need to enjoy it. I hope you found this helpful. If you do have any questions, do comment below, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.